Imagine a young poet, brilliant, ambitious, about to enter Athens' most prestigious dramatic competition. He's prepared a tetralogy, a set of 3 tragedies plus a satyr play, the standard format for the great Festival of Dionysus. Then he meets a strange old man in the marketplace. He goes home that evening and burns every play he's ever written. That poet was Plato. What he built from the ashes of those burned manuscripts changed how human beings think forever. 5th century Athens educated its citizens through poetry. Homer, Aeschylus, Sophocles, Euripides. These men weren't entertainers. They were Greece's primary moral teachers. The Theater of Dionysus held 17,000 spectators. Drama was civic education on a massive scale. Young Plato trained in this tradition. He wrote tragedies. He prepared to compete at the festival. Then he encountered Socrates in the Agora, Athens' central marketplace and intellectual gathering place. Socrates subjected the entire institution of poetry to devastating critique. If the poets are Greece's teachers, and Greece still lacks moral wisdom, then the poets have failed. For Plato, this wasn't abstract criticism. It struck at the core of his identity. He burned his tragedies, but he didn't abandon his dramatic talent. He transformed it into something no one had ever seen. Plato fused rigorous dialectical inquiry, the method of testing ideas through structured argument, with the full dramatic toolkit of Athenian theater, characters with distinct personalities, vivid settings, entrances, exits, subtext, and tension. The result was the philosophical dialogue, a literary form no one had created before and no one since has matched. Consider the alternatives. David Hume, over 2,000 years later, wrote philosophical dialogues that succeed as argument but fail as drama. Spinoza chose geometric proof, definitions, axioms, theorems. Wittgenstein chose numbered propositions. Only Plato made philosophy and literature into a single inseparable thing. This is a claim about form as philosophical achievement. Every great philosopher must discover not just original ideas, but an original way of expressing those ideas. Descartes found the meditation, Nietzsche found the aphorism, Plato found the dialogue, and it remains his greatest invention. Here's the interpretive key to reading these dialogues. They operate on 2 simultaneous levels. The logical level, evaluate the arguments, test whether they're valid, whether they hold up under scrutiny. The dramatic level, interpret the characters' actions, the entrances, exits, silences, and choices. Nothing in these texts is accidental. Take Cephalus in the Republic. He's a wealthy, respectable old man who offers a definition of justice. Pay your debts, tell the truth. Socrates presses him with a gentle counterexample, and Cephalus excuses himself. He needs to go perform religious sacrifices. He walks out of the conversation. That exit isn't incidental staging. Plato is showing us something. Cephalus chooses ritual obligation over philosophical inquiry. His character is revealed not by what he argues, but by when he leaves. The drama carries philosophical weight equal to the logic. This 2-level reading becomes essential in the very next scene. Thrasymachus, an interlocutor, meaning the person Socrates is debating, bursts into the conversation. He's aggressive, theatrical, a professional rhetorician who teaches persuasion for money. He declares that justice is nothing but the advantage of the stronger. Might makes right. Socrates refutes him. But here's the counterintuitive part. Socrates' arguments are weak, conspicuously weak. A first-time reader might assume Plato made a mistake. He didn't. Socrates deploys inadequate arguments deliberately. His target isn't Thrasymachus, it's Glaucon and Adimantus, Plato's own brothers, sitting right there in the room. They're dissatisfied by the refutation. They know it doesn't hold. And that dissatisfaction drives them to take up the challenge themselves, which launches the Republic's monumental 10-book investigation of justice. The weak argument was the catalyst. When Socrates argues badly, the reader's job is to ask why. This strategic use of apparent ignorance brings us to Socratic irony, the practice of feigning ignorance to draw others into examination. Irony in the dialogues isn't a personality quirk or mere sarcasm, it's a precision instrument with three distinct functions. First, provocation. When Socrates claims to know nothing, clever interlocutors feel compelled to prove him wrong, and that impulse opens genuine dialectical examination. The contrast with Gorgias, the famous rhetorician, is telling. Gorgias boasts that no one has asked him a new question in years. He considers himself finished with inquiry. Socrates embodies the opposite. Every settled question generates new ones. Second, deception, or more precisely, marking failed communication. When a dialogue ends on an ironic note, it signals the interlocutor couldn't engage in genuine inquiry. Third, invitation. Irony keeps every question permanently open. Every answer becomes a fresh starting point. The Meno shows irony as deception at its sharpest. After an entire dialogue exploring whether virtue can be taught, Socrates concludes by telling Meno that virtue must be a gift from the gods. This is transparently ironic, a dismissal dressed as an answer. Meno has failed the conversation. He never moved past surface-level engagement, never examined his own assumptions. The irony is Plato's signal to the reader. This inquiry broke down. But notice how deception shades into invitation. That ironic ending doesn't close the question, it reopens it for the reader. Meno drops out, and the reader picks up. Unlike Gorgias, who declares himself done with inquiry, Socrates treats every ending as a new beginning, and his irony is not closure, it's perpetual reopening. This double vision, logical and dramatic, illuminates Plato's entire career, including its final poignant chapter. In the early dialogues, the Meno, the Gorgias, the Republic, Socrates dominates. He's the star performer, the engine of every inquiry. But in the later works, Socrates gradually recedes. In the Sophist and Statesman, a new character takes the lead, the Eleatic stranger, a philosopher from the city of Elea, home of Parmenides. In the Laws, Plato's last and longest work, Socrates is absent entirely. An anonymous Athenian leads the discussion. Plato's independent philosophical voice has emerged from behind his teacher's mask. The Laws was written between ages 65 and 80. It's an unfinished draft. It contains repetitions Plato would certainly have polished. The dramatic richness fades. Strict logical analysis takes over. Perhaps Plato felt the urgency of time. Perhaps Aristotle's presence in the academy pushed him toward greater precision. Plato began as a poet who burned his art. He ended as a philosopher whose art was his philosophy. The dialogue form was his greatest invention, not the theory of forms, not the allegory of the cave, but the medium through which all those ideas breathe. To read Plato only for his arguments is to watch a play with the sound off. To read him only as literature is to miss the engine beneath the drama. He demands both, and the double demand is why 24 centuries later, we still haven't finished reading him.